Hello, it's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 334. It's just asymmetric enough to be annoying. I'm Doug White, and it's Security Weekly News. Welcome to the week of 15 October 2023. We've got Cisco, Juniper, AVOSLocker, NoEscape, Valve, FreedomGPT, more news, and Aaran Leyland, so stick around.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. AI, accelerated cloud adoption, and hybrid work are fundamentally shifting how business gets done. The old way of securing your people, apps, and data doesn't work and scale anymore. To stay ahead, today's organizations need to reimagine their security and networking infrastructure with a cloud-first, unified SASE architecture. Join Palo Alto Networks and leading technologists from across the globe for SASE Converge 2023, a two-day virtual experience, November 15th and 16th. Revealing how SASE powered by advanced AI can drive better security and networking outcomes. Register today at securityweekly.com/Palo Alto.
Business Security Weekly is live streamed and recorded on Mondays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Each week, we address the challenges facing CISOs through our guest interviews, including former and active CISOs. Our news segment is focused on leadership and communication to better help security leaders translate and communicate security risks into business risks. Jason Albuquerque, Ben Carr, Tyler Robinson, and others add their expertise to the conversation. I'm Matt Alderman, and I hope you search for Business Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher and subscribe to download our latest content.
All right, welcome to the Security Weekly News. I did start wondering the other day if they tried pumpkin spice on Arrakis, would all the Fremen's eyes turn orange and like it would kind of degenerate into, you know, like a Tim Burton kind of movie sort of thing, like Jack Skellington is the Kwisatz Haderach kind of stuff. Hey, Tim, you use that, I get a cut, right? Yeah, just saying. All right, well, you remember that time you ran a denial of service using a 286 computer with 256K of RAM? No, neither do I. Well, anyway. Well, over the last 2 months, a distributed denial of service have been using this HTTP2 rapid reset vulnerability have been being conducted, and they really got some rates that were unprecedented, according to this article. At one point, an attack on Cloudflare peaked at 201 million with an M requests per second, which tripled the previous Cloudflare recorded record, which was 71 million requests per second. So theirs was triple that. Another attack was running on a site using Google's cloud infrastructure, which hit 398 million requests per second, which was 7.5 times the size of previous attacks that had been run against Google's cloud. Google's cloud infrastructure. The attacks that were hitting Cloudflare were based on a network of only 20,000 bots, which sounds like a lot in a way, but it actually isn't at all. I mean, most botnets are, millions of bot. And Cloudflare said, quote, for a relatively small botnet to output such a large volume of requests with the potential to incapacitate nearly any server or application that supports HTTP2 underscores how menacing this vulnerability is for unprotected networks. And HTTP2, if you aren't, up on your HTTP versions, went into effect in 2015, and they have released some revisions since then, for various reasons. But HTTP2 provides the ability for each HTTP request, so that's that send packet request that's actually opening a socket, can carry 100 or more streams that the server can then receive all at once. So this is this sort of multi-streaming effect that came into play with HTTP2 that facilitates a lot of the stuff we do today. Well, this particular type of attack is called an application layer attack, because unlike layer 3 type attacks where, you just send as many send packets or as many reset packets or fin packets, whatever you want to send, at that layer 3 device, the layer 7 attacks focus on exhausting the resources at layer 7. and and floods all the applications that are laying there. Any of the HTTP, HTTPS, SIP, whatever services sitting there at layer 7 is being targeted by these kind of denial of service attacks. It's a very, very different kind of attack than the old 286 kind of attack where you're just literally trying to send ACK packets or something to see what happened. This particular attack can funnel 100 or more requests into a single TCP connection using all these streams. So basically what they can do is they send very few packets really relative to the denial of service, but each one of those packets can open 100 plus streams to those applications, which can then cause a lot of problems. The article is very comprehensive, so there's a lot of details about these types of attacks and how HTTP2 and how this rapid reset stuff works. They basically recommend only that you check with the developer of your site to see if there's mitigation guidance. They said a large number of developers of smaller apps are providing fixes currently, and that all the large cloud providers have already been patched to prevent this from happening. So if you are supporting a site, you may want to look into that or read this article and see if you feel like it's a concern. Cisco is warning customers that a new zero-day is impacting iOS XE software and is being used to compromise those devices. And wait till you hear this one. The issue is a privilege escalation issue, which impacts iOS XE web user interface. Big surprise. And that web user interface is on the default image for those devices. And a remote unauthenticated attacker can exploit the vulnerability to create an account that has level 15 access. Now, if you're not up on your Cisco stuff, level 15 is root. So, ouch. Yeah, I mean, that would be, as we say in the business, bad. Now, I'll repeat what I have said 1,000 times on this show. Don't expose web interfaces. And even if they're not exposed, you need to be monitoring those things. They're not secure usually. This exploit can be targeted from the internet or from a local network. So if you're exposing that user web interface for these iOS devices in Cisco, that means somebody can compromise them. If they're exposed to the internet, well, go with God. But, if you don't expose your web interface in the first place, it's not an issue. So if that's in that management VLAN, if it's isolated, you don't really have a big problem with it unless your own people are turning on you, which is of course possible. CISA has added this vulnerability to the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, and entities who are subject to KEV have until 20 October, which is just 3 days from now, to deploy some sort of mitigations for this. Cisco says they're working on a patch, but they currently recommend that customers disable the HTTP server feature on their internet-facing systems and probably on all their systems, to be honest with you. Cisco also has a list of indicators of compromise you can download if you are worried about this. So patch or mitigate. And as long as we're on networking equipment, Juniper Networks announced patches for more than 30 vulnerabilities released yesterday. Patches are available for Junos OS and Junos Evolved and include 9 high-severity flaws. As ever, users are advised to get the patches and put them in place. I mean, it's a pretty obvious thing. My advice, once again, is don't expose these devices. Don't allow the consoles and the web interfaces to be exposed to the open network or the internet. Just don't do it. But people do. And if you do have to do it, if you have to allow people to get to this, only allow specific connections to that device or you will be sorry. Don't just open a door onto your internet with a big sign that says, welcome, come on in, because, yeah, here's our administrative interfaces right there. The FBI and CISA issued a joint advisory which shares known indicators of compromise, tactics, techniques, procedures, and detection methods associated with AVOSLocker ransomware. This was identified through FBI investigations as recently as May 2023. AVOSLocker, AVOS, I don't know how to say it, or AVOS, I mean, it could be any of those. Let's say AVOS. AVOSLocker has had a successful track record against U.S. critical infrastructure. Keeper Security said, quote, CISA and FBI recommend adopting application controls, limiting the use of remote desktop services, segmenting network, keeping systems patched, and maintaining offline backups. I mean, all good advice, all advice you've heard many, many times. So if you're not doing those things, then you'll probably get popped. AVOSLocker is a ransomware as a service operation which targets particularly government, government financial services, and critical manufacturing infrastructure, particularly related to critical U.S. infrastructure. So if you haven't thought about it in a while, it may be a good time to review your response plans for ransomware. I mean, people do this stuff. They have a big initiative. They get it all put together, especially if they were ransomware. And then they sort of let it sit. And 2 years later, the dust and cobwebs have gathered on that plan, and it may no longer be relevant. So it's just use that article as a starting point to maybe reconsider and revisit some of your stuff if you haven't been doing that regularly. In that same light, the healthcare and public health sector received warnings that it is likely being targeted by NoEscape, a triple extortion ransomware threat group, which is a reconstitution of a defunct Russian language-speaking gang called Avedon, which I didn't really remember offhand, but that's the warning was in an analyst note from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Health Sector Cybersecurity Coordinated Center. Wow. That's like, what a name. That's a name only a government could love. But NoEscape is another ransomware as a service group, and they have targeted a range of industries since they were first discovered back in May of this year. The group offers a sign-up to use a suite of malware tools that they provide, and you, of course, pay for that. That allows encryption and exfiltration of victims' data, and then they also sell an add-on module for distributed denial of service offerings for only $500,000. So I guess it must be pretty good if they're charging that much and getting away with it. Now, remember that scene in Barry when he's calling the help desk for the bomb? Yeah, that's kind of how, they're like, have you tried this? And the bomb is beeping, and he's like, I don't know what the beeps mean and all this. I mean, that's how I think about these, like, ransomware as a service groups. Like, they have a nice help desk you call. SOC Radar said that the most common targets to date were in professional services, manufacturing, and information sectors, mostly telcos, with 30% of the victims so far had been reported in North America, but that they were also active in Europe and Asia. Now, the group originally did not allow affiliates to do attacks on former Soviet republics that were within the Commonwealth of Independent States. Imagine that. So again, it's a good time, and it's always a good time to review your policies and maybe run a simulation or a tabletop or something to make sure when somebody like this comes for you, and they will come for you eventually, that you are ready to deal with it on a moment's notice, because, they probably won't send you a notice saying in 2 weeks we're going to hammer you. So get ready. Valve announced that they are implementing additional security measures for developers who are publishing games on Steam. And if you aren't familiar with Valve and Steam, it's a very popular gaming platform that allows, they have commercial games, they have downloadable content, they have indie games, they have add-on content, and on and on and on. So you can always imagine my old Star Trek.exe game showing up there. That was the one that said cool Star Trek game, and if you ran the executable, it wiped your hard drive. Yeah, I didn't write it, but, I always talk about it a lot because I remember seeing that thing on a bulletin board. Somebody put it on my bulletin board server, and I was like, ooh, what's this? And then, I ran it on a test bed, and it was like, oh, it wipes the hard drive. Hysterical. But the new security on Valve and Steam includes SMS confirmation codes. They basically said there'd been a recent outbreak, which I'm surprised it's recent, but I mean, they said a recent outbreak of malicious updates, which were pushing malware from compromised publisher accounts, were causing problems. So, like everything else, whether it's PyPI or any of these other, NPMs or whatever, they basically compromise an account. Probably it's a valid account that people have, downloaded things from before, and then they push malware in there. And so somebody's trying to download an add-on for city skylines or whatever they're trying to download content for, and it becomes compromised. All this report was based on activity in August and September. Valve said the impact of this was on a few hundred users who had been informed about the accounts that they had downloaded from being compromised. The new SMS security check is mandatory starting on the 24th of October, unless you had already enabled it. Like, I checked mine and it was already there and it was still working. So I turned that on the minute they allow me to do it. Obviously, this is just a small step in this problem of, downloadable content that we've pretty much been dealing with forever. And of course, the more downloadable content we have, the more dangerous this thing becomes. So be careful out there when you download that nudity module for The Sims or whatever, because that may well be the one that was getting you to download malware. And it may actually work, but it may also have a backdoor Trojan or something like that going on. So be very careful about that. If you're allowing people to install Steam on stuff at work, you may want to, reconsider that. You shouldn't be doing that in the first place, right? Well, with a terrorist attack on Israel, we've seen a flurry of disinformation being generated about the conflict on all sides. Again, nothing new. This is the same kind of stuff we saw in the Ukraine, but a WhatsApp voice memo which claims to have insider information spread across hundreds of group chats in Israel on Monday. In this particular voice, an anonymous speaker said that the Israeli army was planning for a battle like we've never experienced before, and all this was in Hebrew, but they warned people in Israel that they were about to lose access to food, water, and internet service for at least a week. And so that, of course, triggered a panic with everybody rushing the grocery store to try and buy up everything they could and buying generators and all this. But the message itself apparently was a fake. It wasn't issued by the Israeli army. It wasn't issued by the Israeli government. So it was just issued. Could it be Hamas? Well, it's certainly possible. It could also be Hezbollah. It could be some kid in New Jersey who thought it would be hysterical that just happened to speak Hebrew. But social media is creating this fog of war around what is happening in all these conflicts and triggering panics. I mean, it's nothing new, right? I mean, anyone who ever heard of Tokyo Rose in World War II or Hanoi Hannah in the Vietnamese conflict, we all know that it can be demoralizing and effective, to cause chaos and panic, and that has always been something that has been done in military conflicts. But now it's so easy to do. And with AI-enabled stuff, pretty soon we're going to be getting deep fakes of the prime minister or deep fakes of the president saying this or that or this other thing, and they could cause absolute chaos. And we know there's various groups that are using disinformation to spread panic and lies all the time. And I won't get into naming names. And of course, some of us would disagree on which those groups actually are. But within 24 hours after the Hamas terrorist attack on Israel, a hashtag called Traitors From Within was a top trend on Twitter. And that hashtag was related to them saying that Palestinian citizens of Israel had been assigned to key positions on the fences and things like that. And they were trying to create this big, sort of almost racist conspiracy. And of course, that was not true, at least according to the Israeli government. And it's very, very complicated when they start doing this stuff. It is a really good article about this. And I think we should be telling all our people to try and learn to filter and research, because they're going to use this in every conflict, whether it's kinetic or otherwise. And going forward, it's going to get used a lot. I mean, just think about this. There's a presidential election cycle coming up in the United States next year, and I just cannot quite imagine all the conspiracies that are going to be getting rolled out in the next, year. Joe Biden has a conjoined twin named Rob that's an instrument of Satan attached to his left shoulder. Donald Trump is hiding illegal aliens under his hair. All this and more coming soon to a feed near you. So start learning and developing strategies for your people to keep them from reacting to this stuff in ways that can harm your company or them individually. Well, in his masked wrestler days, he was known as the Irish Rapscallion. And he had a signature move of shoving both of his index fingers up the opponent's nostrils and then grabbing their tongue and reaching down it. I'm not going to read the rest of that. Let's just say that move is now banned worldwide. And please welcome Aaran Leyland.
Thank you, Dr. Doug, and you'll be glad to hear that you can find me back in the pub today with a more jovial attitude than I had on Friday, and maybe I'll pull out the wrestling mask before the end of the show.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were kind of like at the Undertaker's on Friday, so it was like, good evening, it's Aaron.
It's okay. It's good to make people feel awkward sometimes so they realize what fun actually is. Okay, right. Thank you. Today's article, Microsoft kill NTLM and expand Kerberos authentication. Not quite fun, you will say. Definitely not as fun as the cars registering you doing the hokey cokey in the back of the car. Okay, so some background and context. As we know, user authentication is vital for Windows security. Over time, Microsoft tell us that they aim to improve this by focusing more on the Kerberos protocol and phasing out the older NT LAN manager, also known as NTLM. NT LAN manager authentication protocol is maybe the full name. While Kerberos has been Windows default authentication protocol since the early 2000s, which obviously sounds crazy to us older people. NTLM, you might be shocked to know, is still used in some scenarios due to Kerberos limitations or historical application dependencies on NTLM. So you say, what are the key changes and features in Windows 11? First, initial and pass-through authentication using Kerberos, also known as IA-Kerb, or at least it's capital A, capital I, capital A, capital K, ERB, so however they call that. This allows Kerberos authentication across diverse network topologies. It also enhances message security during transit, making it valuable for segmented environments and remote access. I hope you all have segmented environments. I know some have flat networks, bad people. Okay, and secondly, local key distribution center for Kerberos, KDC. This provides Kerberos support for local accounts and also increases local authentication security using AES encryption. All good there. So there is a transition from hard-coded NTLM instances. Microsoft is replacing hard-coded NTLM uses in Windows components with the Negotiate protocol. This would enable services to use Kerberos over NTLM and utilize IA-Kerb and local KDC for both local and domain accounts. These changes will be on by default. They will be on by default. I'll say that twice and then not be able to talk. With NTLM available as a backup for compatibility, which sounds good, right? So how is this improving NTLM? The management, there is enhanced NTLM, I can't even say that, NTLM management tools which offer better monitoring and control of NTLM usage. There is event viewer logs, which will now include service-specific data, providing transparency on NTLM employed applications. And administrators can now set policies at the service level, allowing them to restrict or grant exemptions for NTLM usage. A prize for anybody that comes up with how many times I say NTLM in this show. Microsoft's goal, as they tell us, Microsoft's end game is to reduce NTLM usage to a point where it can be securely disabled in Windows 11. They tell us that they will be closely monitoring NTLM's usage. I'm not sure how they're going to do that. Worries me a little bit. I'm sure it's all above board. Usage and plan to disable it by default once deemed safe. However, an option to re-enable NTLM will remain for compatibility. They say this a lot. Sounds good so far, and I'm definitely all for progress on security. There is a call to action for professionals. Microsoft recommends that we document NTLM usage, checking for hard-coded NTLM instances in code bases, and staying updated with new changes, especially where Kerberos might still have constraints. Hopefully you know where that is. This is a statement direct from Microsoft. Microsoft is determined to strengthen its authentication and security against potential threats. As per Matthew Palco, Microsoft Enterprise and Security Senior Product Management Lead, all these changes will be by default and won't need configurations for most scenarios, keeping NTLM as fallback for compatibility. Sounds really easy. So anyway, my professional commentary on Microsoft's transition from NTLM to Kerberos in Windows 11. The importance of evolving authentication protocols with the shift from NTLM to Kerberos underscores Microsoft's commitment, I hope, to adopting and evolving in the ever-increasing cybersecurity threats that we all know and love and keep us in a job. As cyber threats become more sophisticated, so must the methods of defense. Authentication remains a primary line of defense, and ensuring its robustness is paramount. I know we have all read up on identity and access management, haven't we? Okay, obviously there are issues with legacy systems and backward compatibility. One challenge that many enterprises face when adopting new technologies is the legacy systems and applications that were developed around older protocols like NTLM. Microsoft's strategy of keeping NTLM as a fallback option hopefully showcases their understanding of the real-world challenges enterprises face. At least that's what we hope they're doing. However, businesses should see this as a temporary relief and work towards updating systems that still rely on NTLM. So now is the time to get pushing if you have older systems that this will affect. I promise you this will come fast. Luckily, there are enhancements in Kerberos. They are introducing features, as we said, like IA Curb and local KDC, which not only addresses the historical limitations of Kerberos, but also this hopefully anticipates the diverse network topologies of today's digital age. As remote work and distributed networks become commonplace more and more and more, the ability for Kerberos to function optimally in such environments is obviously a crucial development. There is, however, need for monitoring and management tools, which can be a bad thing, right? While passing out older protocols or phasing out even or passing out is something that I do in the bar, is essential. Providing administrators with the tools to monitor and manage the transition is equally crucial. Enhanced NTLM management tools are an acknowledgement of this need, we think. Transparency and authentication protocols allows for better cybersecurity audits. We all love an audit, and helps in quick identification of potential vulnerabilities. Hopefully, this is all striking the right balance. Microsoft's approach is a testament to striking a balance, according to them anyway, between advancing forward with better security practices and ensuring that existing systems don't break due to abrupt changes, like they always do, mostly, really. This iterative and data-driven approach will likely result in a smoother transition for enterprises. Although that's what they all say, let's hope they've got it correct. It looks good. It looks good. So my recommendations for us, the cybersecurity professionals, it's evident that NTLM's days are numbered. While Microsoft is taking measures to ensure a smooth transition, us cybersecurity professionals should proactively identify systems, applications, and processes relying on NTLM. Planning for a shift to Kerberos-centric systems will definitely be crucial in the coming months and years. And in conclusion, Microsoft's move is a significant step forward in strengthening Windows' inbuilt security mechanisms. Some would maybe even say it's a step greatly needed. But as Windows remains one of the most widely used operating system platforms globally, these changes hopefully have far-reaching implications for enhancing the overall security posture of countless businesses and individuals. We, the cybersecurity professionals, should take note, plan, and act accordingly. Thank you. I will see you on PSW tomorrow, and again with Dr. Doug on Friday with the professional commentary. What a week it's building up to be. Back to you in the studio, Dr. Doug.
All right. Thanks, Aaron. It's always great to have you here. I don't know where Jason is, probably off doing something bizarre, but you know how he is. And finally, just because I keep getting asked about it, FreedomGPT is the uncensored version of ChatGPT. And I was just talking to some people about this the other day in Miami, and we were talking about the difference in FreedomGPT and ChatGPT, so I just thought I would mention it. But one of the big differences, beside it being uncensored, is that you can run it locally. Now, I don't know how effective that is, and I didn't have any information about, is this local instance of it going to be better? But, I mean, everybody has some sort of AI chat engine at this point, but FreedomGPT is the one that will answer that uncomfortable question about, if you were a serial killer, what would your weapon of choice be? Or just keeping your erotic AI conversations local and private. I mean, what we were talking about was how dangerous it was that your employees are using AI. That AI information is being stored in the cloud. You don't really know who owns that information. You don't really know how that information may be used. So if employees are asking about very proprietary things or very personal things, and they're being, dumped into the cloud, the AI may well be handling that information in some way you didn't expect and you can't control. So, I mean, if you're talking to an online friend, well, somebody may be monitoring what you're saying and watching those conversations and tracking them, and it may just be the AI. I mean, I haven't tested it yet. I haven't tested FreedomGPT, but I would presume it takes some horsepower to run. And obviously, just like all AI stuff, it has to be trained up, and it has to, its data set is what determines how effective it is. So we'll see. Well, that's the news. Thanks, Aaron. We'll see you Friday on the Security Weekly News.